How are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. And yeah, what about you?
Fine, just working too hard, not drinking enough beer because it's so hot.
Oh, yeah.
So hot here for the Olympics. I don't know how those poor guys are doing it.
Mm.
They are dying out there running marathons. And
Ooh,
seriously, it's so hot.
yeah, yeah. So just to make sure people know, you're in Tokyo right now.
Yes,
Yeah. So tell me, how long have you been in Japan, and what brought you there originally?
30 years, 30 odd years, a little bit more now. Um, I was hired by a large marketing company to come to Japan, and I worked with them for 12 years um, on amazing brands, building brands and making brand stories um, in, in Japan and overseas, outside of Japan. So I travel the world, and as I travel the world on the big company's money, I collected seeds from all the countries that I visited to. And eventually, with the big company's money, I bought a small farm in the south of France and planted these seeds because they were all famine seeds in the farm in Japan. It still exists today. Different people are running it and taking care of it. But it really was a wonderful way to spend my international travel budgets to actually make a small difference to the world's not just the the climate, but also the future foods of this planet. You know, and I thank that big company for doing that, letting me do that.
That's great. I love the Robin Hood kind of feel of that. Pay everybody and put it into something good. So seeds. I mean, as I said to you, I am completely behind this, and I think, without saving seeds and food biodiversity and soil, then what's the point talking about anything else, really? But yeah, I'd love to hear, what was your journey? What brought you to that realization that seed?
When I was 4 years old, I had a major accident. A fire burned my legs and I couldn't walk. I was in hospital for a year and a half and came out of hospital, and the doctors said I would never walk again. My grandmother was furious with the doctor and grabbed me from my mother, who was relinquishing me to the um, wisdom of the doctors. And my grandmother said, no, he comes and he lives with me and he will walk within a year. And she put me on a wooden chair in the garden every day for a year, where I couldn't run away. All I could do was watch what she did. And what she did was she grew food for the whole family in this garden from her own seeds. And that food fed me, plus her herb teas. And within a year, I was walking, and my grandfather took me up the mountains and walked me up and down the mountains at the weekend to strengthen my legs. And I played professional soccer after that, and went to university and used her herb tea recipes to earn my keep, to put myself through university, actually. Um, and so seeds, growing your own food from your own seeds, why would you not do it? It's cheaper, the nutrition is higher, you're helping with the diversity, you're feeding your body into, so it doesn't need healthcare, it doesn't get sick. You're feeding the whole garden and the surrounding garden. Um, my grandmother would never buy food. Food was not something you bought. You don't know who's grown it, how they grew it, what strange chemicals are in it. Why would you buy food? She would go out, if she went out from the house, she would take a packed lunch and a cup of tea, a bottle of tea, or she would just not eat until she came home again. And then she would eat at home where she knew what she was eating. So that common sense is what Seeds of Life, which is the foundation I started in Japan 10 years ago. That her common sense is the common sense, the philosophy of Seeds of Life. It really is. I do nothing more these days than just tell people what she told me. Yeah, maybe I use different words. And I have a researcher who researches and gathers research from universities around the world. And we use all these big words that my grandmother didn't use. In fact, she never even said organic, and she certainly didn't say bacteria, and she didn't say mycelium. She had no idea about any of this stuff, but she knew what she was talking about, and she knew what she was doing. And so that's where it started. And I've always grown my own food. And 10 years ago, the situation in Japan got so serious with food, with F1 seeds. 95% of soybean in Japan is F1 seeds from America, man-made seeds. And soybean is the basis of the Japanese cuisine, the basis of their diet, with, miso soup and tofu and natto and shoyu and everything else. And yet it's not even Japanese seeds. It's not Japanese DNA. It's not even a Japanese taste anymore. It's imported. The nutrition is low, so low that China 2 years ago refused to buy American soybeans anymore. They switched to Brazil because the protein content in the soybean has gone down so low they won't import it anymore. And there's probably a political statement that they're making as well. But it is. We measure nutrition, we measure proteins, we measure glutens in wheats and stuff. We have statistics that would shock most people on food today. It's a horrendous story.
I mean, I've heard that your average, let's say, vegetable now is so many times less nutritious than it was, right? And
at least 40%. At least 40%.
Wow.
In the last 50 years, it's gone way, way down. Yeah.
Now that's partly the soil, right, as well. But is it also
the soil vitality has also gone down.
Yeah.
The F1 seeds, because they're man-made, they don't match the soil. So therefore they can't catch and can't do the photosynthesis. They can't create DNA and store up DNA, which is vitality and nutrition. It's just a 1 year, one-off process. So you're just getting a quick McDonald's seed, a McDonald's seed that, and you get that nutrition. And that's what people have been living and working on for the past 40 years, which is why they're all tired, which is why we've got Corona, which is why people are having to spend a lot of money on healthcare.
And people just accept this as being normal now, of course. That's the other thing.
Because Bill Gates tells them to, because, he has all the answers, right? Sure. He's doing such wonderful things by putting all these seeds into a seed vault in the Arctic where 50% of them are going to die because of the cold. The other 50% of them are when they take them back out from that vault, their DNA no longer matches the DNA in the soil microbes. So they're not going to sprout anyway.
Oh, can you explain a bit more about that to me?
Sure. Every seeds are living entities, and they live in symbiosis with the soil microbes and with the weather and with the viruses that are different every year. Every year there's a different cycle of, so seed, DNA is the longest storyline in the whole world. It's been a story that has been told for billions of years, and it goes on every year. Every year the story is updated, right? And if you don't update that story, hey, you're in trouble in 10 years, 20 years. It's the pace of change has sped up so fast with global warming. Look at last year and the year before, big jump. Niigata can't grow rice anymore. Natural farmers in Niigata have given up growing rice. Why? Because the soil, the microbes don't match the seeds anymore. You can't get the nutrition. You can't get the volume. You can't make a living at it. So they've given up. Used to be the tastiest rice in Japan was grown in Niigata. Now they can't grow it anymore. They're growing it up in Hokkaido instead. And now you can't grow potatoes in Hokkaido. It's too warm, it's too hot. And the potato disease in the soil, the viruses in the soil, eat all the potatoes. That's happened just in 2 years. So what are the next native foods? What's the next? This is Seeds of Life, big platform right now. Future foods, next natives. What are the next natives? The easiest to grow foods that match the weather, match the soils right now, and match our bodies right now. We forget this. Our bodies go up every year as well. We change. And plants go up every year and change. And we live in symbiosis with those plants. So we match the plants we eat. You do not match the plants, the F1 plants that you eat. Your body cannot match them. Those things are plastic. They were made 10, 20 years ago, and they haven't changed since. Your body's changed. So conditions change. It's dynamic.
So if I were to really simplify this, I'm hearing, like these F1 seeds are almost this very artificially backed up stored seed, but it doesn't make sense to the current climate. And is this the same seed that isn't able to produce the next generation anyway?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's had the male DNA taken out of it. So it cannot reproduce itself. I get very angry sometimes with organic farmers who use black plastic mulch to keep the weeds down, to suppress weeds in their farms. The amount of microplastics they are putting into the soil, which then go into the vegetables, which then go into our colons, and that's organic.
Yeah, I know. I've seen this like black plastic mulch. Everyone's using it, and it's terrible. So so going back to storing seeds now. So say we've got some normal seeds that are not genetically modified.
By normal seeds, you mean native seeds, or?
Yes, native seeds,
Okay.
Natural seeds. Yeah. How long can you actually store them for then? Because I guess whacking them in an ice box in the Arctic isn't gonna do it. So yeah, how long can you store?
Seeds will stay in the soil for decades without spread. They're very sentient beings. They know what's growing next to them. They're aware, because they have to be, because how much water is there available? How much nutrients are available in the soil? They're aware of that, even when they're almost dormant inside themselves. And if the next seed sprouts, they will wait. They'll stop and see how it does. And if it goes and grows, they'll wait till next year or the year after. They're very smart. They have these biorhythms and clocks and amazing smarts inside them, which F1 seeds do not. They've had it taken out because you have to use sprays and chemicals to prime F1 seeds. Why? Because the seed company also sells the chemicals. So they get 2 bites of the cherry. Right?
Yeah.
Now, by the way, they also, once you get sick from eating this food, they sell you the drugs to get you better. So they get three hits of the cherry.
Can I ask
seeds,
you more about that? I wanted to ask, I'm just going into these conversations, I don't get the politics of it. So can you tell me a bit about the corruption and the politics behind why this is happening to our food in the first place?
Oh, it's a central system that is a money-based system. And they really don't care about they do care they care that you get sick because they want to sell you drugs to get you better, So it's a total system and a global system. It's a monopolized system that Bill Gates is part of. All these people at the top are making money out of this. And if you look at the 2 seeds that they focus on, corn and soybean, they do not care if we use this for food. That is the next bioethanol, the next petroleum. And that is what they're growing and practicing growing. Because when petrol goes, they want to switch over to bioethanol. And they've already grown that as got people growing it. They're not considering the food content. That's not the business they're in. They don't care. They'll sell you drugs, get you sick, sell you drugs. Just like, who Bill Gates will be very happy to sell you the immunization for corona. Yeah. So anyway, seeds, different seeds last for different times by themselves. Bean seeds last an awful long time because the coating around them is very thick and it's very impermeable. Water can't get through, light can't get through, air can't get through. And those are the three things that start to seed off inside. If it gets warm, if it gets light, if it gets water, if it gets moisture, those things start to wake it up and it will come alive. So if it's in a hot, dry place, like the pyramids, you can keep a seed for 10,000 years, and a date palm seed survived in the pyramids for 10,000 years and it grew. They put it in the ground and the damn thing grew. And that's the oldest one to date that we know about. So all this,
just big seed vaults, really.
I am continually blown away by the smarts of nature and plants and seeds. They're so much smarter than us. We just get in the way. If human animals would just step out of the way of nature, nature would correct itself within 3 years.
But I was going to ask, there are indigenous people who haven't lost that knowledge, right, in parts of the world. So on your travels, have you met and worked with indigenous communities?
Oh yeah. We went seeds. Actually, I was going to give up about 6 years ago. Because the consciousness in Japan is very much a slow social consciousness. It's fixed. NHK disease, I call it. I know it's just like BBC One disease. NHK disease is it, and I got tired of all this, of nothing happening. And then I got an invite from New Caledonia. New Caledonia is a tiny island, but it's one of the hotspots, DNA hotspots in the world for plants that are 1 billion years old, still growing the way they were growing, way back when, and fish as well. So okay, I'm going. Yeah, I'm going. Wow, New Caledonia. I'm going to swim every day, drink beer every day, and meet all kinds of new people. I got there 1 month. I gave 3 lectures and seminars every day. Morning, afternoon, evening. Spent 1 week living in the jungle naked with the native people. And we had a seed exchange between 2 villages. And they brought their seeds and we exchanged seeds and we talked about seeds. And got this wonderful, wonderful experience, like you say, of people who still live with nature, inside the rhythms of nature, and they think that that's the way it should be. It's natural, to live outside of that. They have no imagination of how to live outside of nature. That was the amazing thing. When I was leaving, I got really close to them, and the village headman had a party for me, and he didn't know where Japan was, but he says, tomorrow our friend John is going far away. that's as best as he could get. So we're very sad because the soil he will walk on and the soil we will walk on will be different. And this makes us very sad. So John, please take these 2 trees home with you, and when in your garden, plant them in your garden in front of your house, so that the soil you walk on will always be the same as the soil we walk on. These are undeveloped people. These 2, the Monsantos and the Bayers, etc. These people are undeveloped. No, not at all. Wonderful experience, really.
Yeah, and I mean, in terms of the would develop, right? That's such a problematic construct to begin with, right? Because where does this development end? If these people who are selling the everyone seeds have their way, we'll just be eating food grown in the lab. And I really imagine this horrible future where people don't even know that seeds are a thing that you can plant to create food, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And
yeah, we do a lot of work in kindergartens and high schools in Japan with kids, and it's literally just throwing seeds at them and saying, what do you think this is? And that is enough of a shock for them, you know. Hey, this is wheat. Hey,
I know
what?
this is bad thing.
Yeah, that's flour. That's pizza. That's pizza. Hey, you know, and then planting it, and then growing it, and then grinding it into flour, and then making a pizza with them, and saying, now this pizza has 40% more nutrition in it than the pizza you buy at Pizza Hut. How much would you pay for this pizza?
Yeah.
Huge, mind-blowing programs that, you know, is simple stuff, but it's like you say, people don't, you know, I was in one school once, and I pulled an apple off a tree, and I took a bite, and I held it out to and the kid goes, no, I'm not going to eat that. It's dirty. What do you mean it's dirty? It's not real. What do you mean it's not real? It's an apple. No. Where'd you get apples? 7-Eleven.
Yeah,
a tree.
It's a disconnect, isn't it? You see, here where I live in Prague, there are fruit trees everywhere, and the tragic thing is you see all these apples and plums just on the pavement falling, and no one's picking them, and then they go to the shop and buy a big
and buy them.
Right. Yeah, but Japan, I did feel particularly in Japan that disconnect from nature, even though they say they love nature. It's very manicured, isn't it? We love our bonsai trees and our paved rivers. So what was it? Was it that drew you to stay in Japan and do your work there, or what was
No, I think the rest of Asia still looks towards Japan for them to lead them into the next consciousness, or even the next fashion item or whatever. They still look to Japan. So if we can crack it, and it looks like we're going to get there in the next 3 years, if we can crack it in Japan, then it will just jump across Asia as a platform. And that's the reason why I've always stayed and battled on in Japan. And I think we can see it happening in the next couple of years, which is huge. It's a really big platform that it will make. And we went down to Indonesia 3 years ago, I think. And Indonesia, wow, is hell. Jakarta is hell on earth. You know, you've got people running around, spending money buying a McDonald's when they could spend a tenth of that money on real food, street food, real good street food, but they don't. And the McDonald's garbage and everybody else's garbage is just piled up in the streets because it just gets thrown away, and there's no services to clean it up. And it's year on year on year. Plus the fumes for the traffic that doesn't move in the streets. You've got millions and millions and millions of people moving around every day. And it's the worst of a metropolis that a metropolis could be. It really is. And the people, they're going to hit a wall very soon. They're hitting it now. They don't have enough food to feed people, and they don't have enough clean water. And yet, a country that is making a lot of money for the central food system and the central banking system, it's hugely rich for the very few people at the top. But for the majority of the people, it's a terrible life. It really is. It was an eye-opener for us because we went over there to kickstart a forestry program of growing avocado trees instead of palm oil trees, switching to avocado trees oil, and not in plantations, but again in forest farms. And we were forced to be centered in Bangkok. And on our one day off, the president of the local company said, "Hey, you can have my car and my driver to, you know, go around." And we said, "No, thank you. It's okay. We'll just lie by the pool for a whole day." You don't want to get back in the traffic. It's, you know, people need to get out more and see more places and take a look at what are we eating and who is growing it and how is it being grown, you know?
And do you think it sounds like it's just this very elaborate brainwashing, really, right? That people think McDonald's is a better choice than something.
Sure. That's what you said. William Burroughs said it in one of his books. He said, if people don't hear anything else, they believe what they hear. So if all you hear is eat McDonald's television commercials, if that's all you hear, that's what you believe. It's very simple. You don't hear that, you know, Fuji apples nutrition content is 3% of a wild mountain apple. So you have to eat 90 Fuji apples to equal the nutritional content of one wild mountain apple. That's not food.
No, that's not sustainable.
But this is the apple most sold all around the world. It's the highest selling apple all around the world. They don't tell you the story. You don't get the information, so you can't make a choice.
So tell me a bit about soil as well, because I've been really wanting to learn more about soil health. And from what I understand, yeah, when we buy food from shops, it's probably a farm with soil that's been completely destroyed and just covered in pesticides and fertilizer to try and force the last bit of life out of it, right?
Absolutely. Hokkaido produces 25% of Japan's food. That's a huge amount for a small island. They produce it by farming, mass farming, industrial farming, big machines, lots of chemicals, lots of pesticides. Seeds of Life was called to Hokkaido 3 years ago. Help, 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 help. We get there and we go, what's the problem? The farmer says, I don't have any soil on my farm anymore. What do you mean you don't have soil? Well, the wind was strong and it blew it onto the next farm. It blew all the soil because the soil has become so unhealthy. It's not soil anymore, it's dust. And literally a strong wind just blows it away. Soil, again, is a living entity. It's a sentient being. It's alive. It's the lungs of our planet. It's a living, breathing thing. And it lives in symbiosis with plants. It lives in symbiosis with the weather, with seeds, and with animals like us. And we need to keep that symbiosis going, especially between seeds and soil. The symbiosis between seeds and soil is so deep. It's been going on. Human animals just came on the scene on this planet. Seeds and soil DNA microbes have been here for billions of years. They've been doing this for billions of years. We just screwed it up in the past 200 years royally and destroyed the whole thing for them. You know, that's how smart we are. That's how smart we are, you know, really. And so what we get in our supermarket shelves is nutritionally deficient, vitality deficient, diversity deficient DNA nutrition, okay? And chemically loaded, not just with chemicals, also loaded with sugars, because as the CO2 increases in the atmosphere, who absorbs it? Plants. Your vegetables absorb it. Your fruits absorb it. And the sugar content has gone up by 43% in the past 50 years in vegetables. So if you're vegan or vegetarian, think again about where you access your foods. because if you're just getting them from the local organic store, which uses F1 seeds, by the way, 95% of that food in that organic store is F1 seed. High levels of sugar, high risk, and a 30% increase in diabetes in today's youth over the last 25 years.